Hi, this is Maria Olson. You may know me from Trophy Heads or Starry Eyes and maybe Paranormal Activity 3. And I want to welcome you to Anthony T's Horror Show because it's an awesome show.
Hi, my name is Jessica Cameron, and you're listening to Anthony T's Horror Show.
Hey, fellow horror fans. This is Troy Escamilla, the director of Party Night and Mrs. Claus, and you are listening to Anthony T's Horror Show. Enjoy.
Welcome to another edition of Anthony T's Horror Show. I'm Anthony T. In this edition, I'll be giving my thoughts on ScareCon New England, which I was at early this month. And also, I will have some interviews that I conducted while I was at ScareCon New England. Plus, I'll have another edition of the Indie Roundup, where I'll review the short film Demonbond and the horror anthology Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central. But first, the news. And I debated how I should start the news off, because I could have gone probably 2 or 3 ways on this, because they're all big stories. In fact, 2 are bunched together. Another is, of course, my thoughts on the box office take of Child's Play. Since the remake hijacked my show, I might as well give my thoughts on it, because you guessed it, Child's Play tanked at the box office. I told everyone this was a bad idea to release it against Toy Story 4. I'll go into that in a bit. But first, I figured, since there's been a lot of Blumhouse production news, and Jason Blum making kind of headlines which irked me, I figured I'd call this mini news segment Jason Blum Overkill, because it's like 3 stories that I have to talk about. And the first is the most important story of the 3. Halloween 2 is gonna get made. Finally. As I would dub it, Halloween 2, the 3rd time it happened. Now, you're saying to yourself, why am I referring to this upcoming Halloween 2 as Halloween 2, the 3rd time that it happened? I'll give you a little backstory here. The first Halloween 2 happened in 1981 with Rick Rosenthal directing the film, and it starred, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis and the late Donald Pleasance. I thought it was a good film, but I would have to say Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, is a better film than Halloween 2. Because Halloween 4 felt like the original Halloween, and Halloween 2 felt a little different. I still cannot point the finger to why it's different, but it's different. Then you have Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, of course. And now this was directed in 2009. It's a film where very few people like myself loved, and everyone else pretty much hated the film and couldn't get what Rob Zombie was trying to do with this film. Because Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 felt like a film that you'd imagine someone like David Lynch would direct. But I thought it was original and unique and different. That's why I think I love the Rob Zombie Halloween films, because they are so different from the original. And the film will be celebrating its 10th anniversary in August, the same month as this podcast is celebrating its 1st anniversary. Then you got this Halloween 2 coming up. According to IndieWire.com, Halloween 2 is happening, and the target release date is October 2020. Jamie Lee Curtis will be returning for the sequel, along with a screenplay written by David Gordon Green, with no director attached to the film yet. it. Now, I really hope David Gordon Green comes back to direct this film, because he really did a very good job with his direction. It's nice to see that Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back, because it really doesn't feel like a Halloween film without Jamie Lee Curtis or Donald Pleasance. So I'm excited to see what happens with Halloween 2. The film is rumored to be starting filming in September. The next piece of Jason Blum news came out of nowhere. Literally, it really came out of nowhere, as Blumhouse Pictures will be remaking Black Christmas, or what I would call it, Black Christmas Take 3, because this will be the second remake of Black Christmas. A little brief history on Black Christmas. The original film came out in December of 1974. It was directed by the late Bob Clark. Yes, the same Bob Clark that also directed the Christmas classic A Christmas Story. In the film starred Olivia Hussey, John Saxon, whom people will know from A Nightmare on Elm Street, and the late Margot Kidder, who people know from Superman. That is definitely a classic horror film that people should check out. I can't highly recommend this film enough. It's, I think, one of my favorite Christmas horror films of all time. Then you had the first remake of Black Christmas, which came out in 2006. The film was directed by Glenn Morgan, who was a producer on The X-Files and is currently one of the producers of the Twilight Zone reboot that's on CBS's streaming service. Now, that's a film I haven't seen, because at the time I really did not care about the remake of Black Christmas, so I completely ignored the film, so I can't tell you if it's good or bad. So this leads to the surprise remake of Black Christmas, as this caught me completely by surprise. The film is set to star Imogen Poots and Carrie Elwes, who you may know from Saw, and he's also going to be in the third season of Stranger Things as well. The film is directed by Sophia Takal, who directed the 2016 thriller Always Shine, which I've heard good things about, so it's more of a wait and see on Black Christmas, as it looks like it's going to be an interesting film. It was one of those things where I overreacted a little bit on social media about it, because once they showed the poster for it, I really was not happy with it. But the fact that I'm hearing that Sophia Takal, whose last film Always Shine got a lot of acclaim, will be directing, so I'm willing to take a wait and see approach on this, at least till the trailer, before I make any real judgments about this. And finally, in Jason Blum Overkill, Jason Blum gets a Funko. Yes, Jason Blum gets a Funko, and it really pisses me off. No offense to Jason Blum, as he's done a lot of things for the horror genre, but it's way too early to immortalize the guy in Funko form. You may not know this about me, I'm a big Funko collector, but when it comes to directors, producers, Jason Blum is not on the top of my priority list in terms of who should get Funkos. I'm going to talk more about this next episode, because I really have some ideas of who should get a Funko. I think it's too soon for Jason Blum to have a Funko. Seriously. There's other horror people in the genre that deserves a Funko more than Jason Blum. And I kind of really wasn't happy that he's getting a Funko and X-Director isn't. Because X-Director has done multiple landmark films and he still hasn't gotten a Funko. If you can do a Funko for Alfred Hitchcock or Guillermo del Toro, then you can do a Funko for X-Director, which I'll reveal next episode, because there's actually a couple of them that deserve a Funko before Jason Blum. I'm sorry, but Jason Blum does not deserve a Funko at this juncture. And that wraps up Jason Blum Overkill. There's another news story that I want to talk about, and it's the Child's Play box office totals from its opening weekend. Now, this is from all estimated figures for the weekend of June 21st through 23rd, but Child's Play made only $14 million at the box office on a $10 million budget. That is not considered a home run. What would have been considered a home run for this film if it made $20 million on a $10 million budget, but it failed to make $20 million on its opening weekend. So, if you don't double your budget on a low-budget film on your opening weekend, then it's not much of a success, because you want to make a major profit, and it doesn't look like this film is going to do that. My guess is it'll probably end up between 30 and 40 million total when its run ends, which is pretty much the standard gross for a horror film of that caliber, meaning that it'll probably break even. But you want to make a profit, and this film is not going to make much of a profit. I can tell you that right now. As it'll probably make its profit on home video. With that, that's the news. Besides Anthony T's Horror Show, you can also listen to these other fine podcasts on the Doc Discussions Network. Doc Discussions, hosted by Philip Perrone and Michael Darwin. You Know Nothing, Jon Snow, a Game of Thrones podcast. Bullets, Brothels, and Bots, a Westworld podcast. Halloween Boutique, Psychotronic Reviews. And Searching for American Gods. You can find Doc Discussions on the web at www.docdiscussions.com, and Doc Discussions is also available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify.
Hey guys, this is Steve and Christina. I'm the founder, owner, creator, and host of Super Retro Throwback Reviews. Are you looking for the best movie reviews, music reviews, video game reviews, and Comic-Con coverage all around? Well then look no further. Definitely check out Super Retro Throwback Reviews on YouTube and our new audio podcast, the new and improved Super Retro Throwback Reviews audio files version 2.0 on the following media distributors: Podbean, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify.
Class is over, John. Time for something new and improved.
Welcome back to Anthony T's Horror Show. Last episode, I didn't get a chance to talk about my thoughts about ScareCon New England, which took place June 7th through the 9th, because, well, I wanted to focus the episode more on the indie filmmaking panel. But now I'm here to talk about my thoughts, and I have to say I had a very good time. First off, I want to thank J.V. Johnson and Cress Winchester for letting me spend the weekend promoting my podcast at their convention. ScareCon New England is always a good time. This year was no different, as I had a blast. And I also want to thank Philip Perrone from Doc Discussions and Leo Pond of The Darkening for letting me be a part of a couple panels at the convention. It was a good time. I hope to do it again next year. If you're in the New York area, I highly recommend you check out ScareCon's New York show, which is going to take place October 18th through the 20th in Rochester, New York, at the Rochester Riverside Hotel. With that, so you're wondering what are some of my favorite moments at ScareCon New England. One would definitely be meeting David Howard Thornton. He's a fun guy to be around with. I could tell easily that he wanted to be there, as he was one of those people that was there for the fans, which I always like when I go to a convention, because you want to hang around people who want to be there. And David Howard Thornton is definitely one of those people that you want to definitely hang around with, as he was fun, especially with the photo ops. As I liked how he made each of the photo ops different, as I also saw a couple of my friends' photos as well. And it's very cool when someone takes the time to try to make a moment special. And I think David Howard Thornton did a very good job making that moment special. as I really had fun doing the Odd the Clown photo op. Plus, it also seemed like everyone else was having fun, which is always a positive sign when you're going to a convention. Another favorite moment would definitely be meeting the Ranger. And I will talk about the Ranger later on in the show. Don't worry. But meeting Jeremy Holm, I thought I was going to probably meet someone who was serious, as he's been in such TV shows as House of Cards and Mr. Robot. But I was surprised that he really was probably the most fun person to be around with all weekend, celeb or not, because he really made that moment when I met him over at the Three Guys That Horror podcast booth a very special one. And it's really so special to me because I also made it my profile picture as well on my personal Facebook page. I really hope the Ranger does achieve cult status, because I really would love to see Jeremy Holm do more conventions. Another favorite moment is when I met Don Coscarelli. If you follow Anthony T's Horror Show on Instagram, you might have seen one of the spears from Phantasm go right in my eye. That was because I had a very fun time being with Don Coscarelli. He's a very cool guy. I talked to him a little bit about Phantasm and a little bit about Bubba Hotep as well, because let's face it, Bruce Campbell is one of my favorite actors. But I'm a really big fan of the Phantasm series. I also got to meet Reggie Bannister as well, very nice guy. And my last favorite moment was moderating my first panel, as I got the chance to moderate the Indie Filmmakers panel alongside Michael Darwin of Dark Discussions. That was a very good time. I suggest you go back to episode 22. You can listen to the whole panel in full. I was joined on stage with Damien Leone from Terrifier, Garo Nagosian from Dangerous People, and also Matthew Fisher, director of Insomniac, and he also co-hosts two podcasts, one over on Boombastic Films YouTube channel, Boombastic Cast, and Shock Treatment with Mel and Maddie over at 990WBOB.com. And that was pretty much my favorite memories from the convention. It was a blast coming to ScareCon New England, and I hope to do it again next year. Now here's some interviews from ScareCon New England that I managed to get. I apologize I didn't get any celebrities at the convention as I was very busy, but I would hope you enjoy these interviews, as these indie artists and filmmakers were fun to interview. I'm here with Dean Kalustian, author of The Stalking Dead. Now, what made you want to get into comic books, writing in artistry?
I grew up reading comic books and watching horror movies, and I decided that I wanted to combine my loves and wrote a scary, funny comic book.
Now, tell me about The Stalking Dead, your comic book that you're selling.
The Stalking Dead is kind of a mashup of all your favorite Christmas specials, kind of infected with zombies. Like it's a solid story, kind of like Shaun of the Dead, that it's a good heartfelt story, but at the same time uses a lot of references to lots of other horror movies and a lot of the archetypes from a lot of the Rankin Bass Christmas specials, and then a lot of puns, a lot of really terrible puns.
What was the writing process like for your graphic novel?
Well, I'm not sure how long it actually took me to write it, but it took me a year to pencil it, and then a year to ink that, and then another year to color those. So it was like a 3-year process of working pretty solidly to get this out.
Now, what was the first thing did you do? Did you ink it out, or did you write the story first?
I had written the story first, but then as I was inking it, I was discovering that, the pages needed to change, so the story kind of evolved and changed as I was writing it.
Now, how long has this book been out for?
It came out, I think we released it in 2015, I think. So it's been about 4 years.
Now, do you have any other graphic novels?
I don't have any other graphic novels. I do have artwork in other people's books. One of my pieces of artwork is in a tribute book to Nine Inch Nails and a book of Nine Inch Nails comics. I write a lot of plays, and I've illustrated a book. I'm spacing on the name of it. It's kind of like the Dark Tower series. It's The Elect Chronicles, I believe, is the name of the book. That it's not finished yet. I've been submitting them artwork chapter by chapter.
Now, I also noticed you got some nice artwork here that you sell as t-shirts. Now, the one I like much that I picked up last year was the I Am Providence shirt, since I'm from the Providence area. Now, how did you come up with that design?
Well, that one, when we started off with just having the graphic novel, and we were selling a lot at the Rhode Island Comic-Con, and so I decided instead of just having Stalking Dead t-shirts, I'd make a t-shirt specially for the Rhode Island Comic-Con, and so I designed the I Am Providence t-shirt, but then our Cthulhu shirts were so popular that we just expanded and kept doing more and more t-shirts with my artwork on them, and gradually the t-shirts have kind of taken over, and all my artwork is, out on t-shirts, and I sell lots of t-shirts, even more so than the book.
Now, what is special about Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft that you like to do your art based on?
Well, Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft I have very different feelings about. Like H.P. Lovecraft, I love the idea of his Cthulhu stories. I'm not as big a fan of the actual stories, but I love the mythos he's created. Whereas Edgar Allan Poe, I love his writing and his use of words, and especially his poetry. So I absolutely love, I've done a whole bunch of illustrations of Edgar Allan Poe's works, and even my company and my drawing name is under Within Dreams, which is from Edgar Allan Poe's All That We See or Seem Is But a Dream Within a Dream.
Now, another one of your t-shirts that stands out is the Drive-In Poster t-shirt. Now, what inspired you to do a shirt with the likes of Dracula, House of the Living Dead, Frankenstein's monster, and all?
Well, that's the only design we have that I didn't draw. That's an old spook show poster, which are really hard to find, and I stumbled upon that one in a little antique store in Cape Cod, and I bought it for $12, and they sell for tons of money, so I was really lucky to come across this, and so I made prints of it because I know how much I love it, and I wanted a t-shirt of it, so I figured other people who like the same thing as me would also enjoy that shirt too.
What made you like these sorts of films?
I grew up going over my grandmother's every Saturday and watching Creature Double Feature on Channel 56, and fell in love with horror movies. Used to be really afraid of them, and then as time went on, I directed a horror film, and I became a makeup artist for a little while, and just love horror.
Now, do you have any upcoming projects, whether it's in your art or in the graphic novel field, in the near future?
I have a children's book coming out sometime in the near future. It's almost done, called Monsters Don't Like Mayonnaise, and it's all about the foods that monsters do like and how much they absolutely hate mayonnaise. And so that's my next big project. And I have another 2 collections of plays coming out soon too.
Well, Mark, it was very nice chatting with you. Enjoyed the rest of the convention.
Thank you. You too.
I'm here with Matthew Fisher, Alexander Huck, and actor Ray Boulin.
Yeah.
Star of the film Insomniac. Now, how did the story for Insomniac come about?
The story for Insomniac came about just by, I always had insomnia throughout my life, and I always thought it was a great jumping off point for like a dimensional type switch up film. So it kind of came from my own personal experience, as well as evolving, the story from something, you regularly see in the diving into that whole dimensional aspect, and then touching on there's some stuff with questionable medical practice in the film as well, which I think is a fun element to it. But it's just a combination of all those things put together was like the main inspiration for it.
Now, what was it like getting funding for your film, Insomniac?
Surprisingly, Insomniac was the easiest film to fund. And we made our money back on that one quickest too, but that was pretty much funded through like Alexander Hawk and Dave Maggot. We funded it ourselves, myself. It was like inside funded. It was only like $1,300, you know what I mean? It wasn't super expensive. We usually try and pride ourselves on trying to make quality stuff for super cheap money. But yeah, so the budget was pretty small. We pretty much did it ourselves.
What's some tips that you can share with the audience about how to make your film look very effective on a limited budget like that? If you wanted to get a good cinematic look, I'd do some like YouTube tutorials on lighting, because lighting is very important that people don't really go into. Also color correcting at the end. There's a lot of post-production work that can get done to it to make it look better. So I'd just do that. As for making films, anybody wanting to make a film, I'd just say, grab a group of friends, family, whatever, go out some weekend, write a script, shoot it, cut it up, see what it takes to do like a 5-minute short, and go from there. At that point you might realize you don't like doing it, you just like watching it, and that's cool. But if not and you want to progress, you'll learn from your mistakes and the next one will be better. Now, Ray, how did you become involved with the film, and tell me about your character in the film?
Matt Fisher contacted me, sat down, we talked about it. My character is Dr. Pleasance. Best way to describe him is you don't want him as your doctor. Smooth on the outside, but very dark on the inside. Very, very dark on the inside. Like I said, it's I wouldn't trust him with anything.
Dr. Pleasance seems like a play on Donald Pleasance. Yeah. What made you want to base a character around Donald Pleasance, Matt?
Well, it's not really based on him. I mean, character-wise, they're very different. I just wanted to do a play on the name because, in my mind, he's the most famous doctor in, horror folklore. So, in my opinion, so that's why I want to do a little play on, pay some respect,
Okay.
And, I'm a big Donald Pleasance fan, so why not, what I mean?
I am too, so.
we couldn't get Donald, but we got Ray Booten, which is the next best thing.
Now, what was it like to work with Matthew, Ray?
I enjoyed it. We had fun giving me direction to develop the character, his style of directing. I've been in more than just Insomniac, and that's because I've seen his work, I like his work, and I like working with him.
I don't mean to leave you out, Alexander. What was it like producing the film?
It was a lot of fun. When Matthew told me about it, I definitely wanted to be a part of it. I helped produce it. I also was the assistant director on the film and had a small role of a patient that had already met Dr. Pleasance earlier than the lead character, and I was definitely suffering from my encounter with him. So it was a lot of fun. I even did a very special haircut for the film. Shaved part of my head off to, look like. Actually, this is a picture of the character I played. Really zoned out and
hold it up for the camera.
We have no camera.
Well, you gotta use your mind's eye, you know. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Leave it to interpretation.
Leave it to interpretation. Let your mind picture an image of a man on the brink of insanity. And that's what I was.
Now, both you and Alex have another horror film here called Groundhog. Tell everyone about that film.
Groundhog is a holiday-themed slasher film written and directed by David McDonough, who is not here. He's with us in life, but not with us at the convention. We shot, that was the last feature film that we shot. Sam Hayes in there, Kissing Gwendolyn's in there.
James Balsamo.
James Balsamo's in there.
Balsamo,
yeah. Effects by Billy Coyne, who's roaming around here somewhere. Yeah, you know, it's about Logan Tanner. He's a guy. Him and his girlfriend. They're news reporters, and they get into an accident in the first half of the movie where his life changes dramatically. And then we catch up to speed with them 10 years later, I think it is.
Yeah, something like that.
And he returns in not such a good mood to deal with people that he feels were, you know, to blame for that situation that happened in the beginning of the movie.
Now, Alexander, I know you have a role in Groundhog as well. Tell me about your character in the film.
Okay, I play Thomas Cosgrove. He is an owner of a bed and breakfast. He's like the epitome of the asshole boss, treats everyone like crap, and unfortunately for him, he runs afoul of Logan Tanner, because Logan is looking for the groundhog, who he blames as the cause of his girlfriend's death. And my character has a groundhog themed bed and breakfast, so he thinks he's going to find the person for the creature for his pain hiding out in my bed and breakfast, and I get to end up dying a very grisly death. Yeah.
Now, how can they find each of those films, Groundhog and Insomniac?
They can either come to, they can go to the Facebook page for Boombastic Films and either hit us up directly and get it to them that way. We have PayPal. We can mail in some, check or money order, all that good stuff. Or, find out where we're appearing at a convention like this and come by and, come to the booth and get a full array of what you could, get. We had a little bit of everything at the booth, as you can see. So I'd say probably your best bet would be coming out to a convention to get the full grasp of what we got. Or, just contact, if you know what you want, just contact us directly and we can get it to you.
Now, what upcoming conventions are you going to be appearing at?
July? The end of July, we're going to be at the Gathering of the Juggalos. That's the next thing we're going to be at. And then that's in Indiana. I think we're going to go to there's a con in New Hampshire at the end of this month that we might stop in. I don't know if we're going to have a booth, but we might be there roaming around. Yeah. They got the Willy Wonka kids, and I want to go meet the Willy Wonka kids. That's the whole deal with that. But, our next big appearance will be the Gathering. So, if anybody's into that and in Indiana, come out to it. It's a big music festival for people, big ICP thing. But there's wrestling and, they get comedians coming in and stuff. It's a 4-day, extravaganza of like really cool shit. So yeah, but we'll be back. I think we're planning on being at Rocket Shock later this year. Yeah. So that's probably the next one for anybody local that wants to come out and see us.
Well, I want to thank you, Matt. Thank you, Ian. Alexander, don't mind me, it's 11 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you, man.
And thank you, Ray, for taking the time for the interview. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the convention.
Thank you. You too, man.
You too. Take care, man.
I'm here with the cosplayer Zombie Leader. Welcome to the show, Zombie Leader. I just tripped over Thor's hammer. So, what made you want to be a cosplayer?
I got into cosplaying as I was fundraising for charity.
Now, I noticed you're raising charity for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. What made you want to choose that charity?
My grandmother passed away several years ago from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, so I've been fundraising for LS for many, many years.
Now, some of the cosplays that I've seen at your booth over at conventions is The Walking Dead. What makes you a big fan of The Walking Dead?
I enjoyed the show early on. I enjoyed the character development. Lately, it hasn't been so great, but I'll still watch the show.
Now, what else do you do besides having this nice display over here at your booth?
I gather autographs from celebrities to auction or raffle off for the charity, and I also paint.
So, what upcoming conventions will you be at?
I'll be at Plastic City. I'll be at Rhode Island Comic Con Super Mega Fest.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the show. Have a good day and enjoy the rest of the convention.
You too. Have a good one.
I'm here with Matt from Mad Angels Films, as I'm over at his booth, as he has a good collection of horror films that he's selling. Now, the first film you have on display is Brackish. Tell everyone about that film.
Brackish is a film about a guy who loses his fiancée, kind of finds a way to bring her back, but requires some human sacrifices, and that doesn't usually go so well.
Now, was this your first foray into horror, or?
Actually, it is a remake of my first horror film.
Which film?
Same name. It was Brackish. We made it about 10 years ago. It sucked really bad, but we liked the idea of it, so we remade it, and the new version came out.
Now, what are your thoughts on the new version?
It's amazing, and it's awesome, and it's everything we wanted to be 10 years ago, that we finally actually had the budget and everything to do. So,
now you also have another film here called Half Dead, which has a very graphic cover. What made you want to go for a very graphic cover for that film?
It's always good shock value if someone who wants to buy something, I would imagine. Half Dead is a film about a guy who gets murdered by the mob, and he comes back seeking revenge as a zombie.
Now, was that a difficult film to make?
It was fun. I wouldn't say difficult. It was definitely a fun film. We had a blast making it.
Now, you also have a film that really looks like The Last House on the Left, called 3 Days in the Woods. Tell me about that film.
It's almost a throwback to 70s style slasher films. It's about a group of people who go camping in the woods, and they stumble across a cult who kind of hunts them down and torments them and kills them for 3 days.
Now, what made you decide to do a 70s exploitation type film?
It's always been an interest. I like the genre, and I thought it'd be something that's really neat to do.
Now, you also have another film called Savage Christmas. Let me guess, it's basically Black Christmas. Or it's different?
It's about a group of friends who rent a cabin around Christmas time and accidentally bring back a demon. And the demon kind of torments them all horribly on Christmas.
So, which are your most popular films here, of the horror films that you have here?
I would imagine Savage Christmas and 3 Days in the Woods are our best sellers.
Now we're going to go off horror a little bit and talk about this really weird-looking film called Barely Coping.
Yes, that is our newest film. This recently just came out. It is a comedy about a guy who thinks he's a panda, and he's kind of dealing with loss and helps a family who's also dealing with loss along the way. So it's almost like a black comedy of sorts.
Now, what made you want to get out of the horror genre to make this black comedy?
This is a personal story that I wanted to tell, basically. Something a little different, something more from the heart.
Now, what advice would you give to filmmakers who are looking to get into the business?
I would say write about what you know and kind of make something that is close to your heart.
Final question. Actually, I got two more. How did you come up with the name Mad Angel Films? Because it sounds like a cool-looking name for a film company.
It is based off of a Japanese street gang.
Wow. Now, besides this convention, what upcoming conventions are you going to be doing?
At the present moment, I don't know. I guess we'll see what's coming up. I haven't planned that far ahead.
Now, where can people find your films to buy?
We do have some available on Amazon. You can buy them off of Facebook as well. And our website, magicfilms.com.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the show. Have a good day and enjoy the rest of the convention.
Thank you.
I'm here with artist Joe Orsak. We're here to talk about his latest graphic novel, Virgin Vampires, which recently came out. How are you doing today, Joe?
Oh, not too bad. Having a good time. Virgin Vampires actually came out about 5 years ago. It's the second graphic novel that I've done with writer Douglas Brody for McFarlane and Company Publishers down in North Carolina. Virgin Vampires is the fictitious tale of a young Abraham Stoker at the age of 16 and his mentor Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, another Irish writer of horror fiction, and their adventures before becoming writers. Our publisher, McFarlane, is mainly interested in doing non-fiction books. So our graphic novels were the first fiction works that they ever published. They always wanted to have any book that they do grounded in truth. So the truth behind Virgin Vampires is that in 1858, Susanna Le Fanu, the wife of Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, died under mysterious circumstances. The newspapers reported that prior to her death, she had been undergoing a religious crisis. This is true. Doug and I look at that and we nod our heads and go, yeah, she was killed by a vampire. So we weave our story around that kernel of truth and come up with our story, which features Count Dracula and Elizabeth Bathory, the Countess of Blood, and we got a little bit of werewolves and other monsters in there as well.
Now, what drew you to include Count Dracula, Elizabeth Bathory, the werewolf, and all those other characters in your story?
Because we have the central character being Bram Stoker, we had to give him, the interaction with these characters so that he can come up with his book Dracula. So one of the other characters is the woman that will become his wife later on, and so she's one of the characters in the book as well.
Now, what kind of horror were you influenced to buy?
Well, especially Virgin Vampires. Unfortunately, this is all audio, so I can't show you the book, but it's mainly influenced by Hammer horror films. I love Hammer movies, and so I tried to make my art resemble a Hammer movie.
Now, what were some of your favorite Hammer films?
Oh, the horror of Dracula right off the bat. I love that movie. And also Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. All the Dracula series is high on my list.
What was the process like creating the art for this book?
Well, because it's set in a time period, every book that I do, I always try to make it true to the era. So my costuming, the architecture of the cities, everything all has to be true to form. So I do a lot of research. I research the carriages, the costuming, the buildings in the cities at that time period. Part of it takes place in Budapest, part of it takes place in Dublin, Ireland, so I have Trinity College, and so I have to do the buildings of Trinity College. So I study these things before I do the art. The book took me 26 months to create.
Wow.
And not working 24 hours, or not working 8 hours a day on it. I had my other work as well, but it took me 26 months to complete.
Now, was this more of a side project?
Well, not really. Doug and I had been doing a comic strip in the Syracuse newspapers called Salt City, and the people at McFarlane and Company, the publisher of our graphic novels, saw what we were doing online, and they contacted us and they said, "We're interested in doing graphic novels. Would you like to be the ones to launch the line?" And so Doug has been a big fan of movies all his life. He taught a course at Syracuse University about movies, in the history of movies, and so he's written 5 screenplays at least. I'm sure he's probably written more now, but he sent them 5 screenplays, and the first one that they chose was Yellow Rose of Texas, The Myth of Emily Morgan, which was our first graphic novel. That was a Western romance story about the battle between Texas and Mexico, involving the Alamo and the Battle of San Jacinto, and Emily Morgan's part in those events. While I was doing the artwork for Yellow Rose, Doug was writing Virgin Vampires. So while Yellow Rose was based on a screenplay, Virgin Vampires was strictly meant as a graphic novel.
Now, do you have any other horror graphic novels that are currently out there?
Virgin Vampires is the only one right now.
Do you have any upcoming projects?
Well, I do work for Ahoy Comics as an illustrator. I don't have an actual comic book with Ahoy, but I've been doing spot illustrations in some of the backup features of the books, especially The Wrong Earth, which is one of their first books that they launched. I also work for Stellar Comics out of Buffalo, and I'm still working on projects about that. I really can't say too much about it.
Now, what is a spot illustrator for those who don't know?
Well, a spot illustrator is if you have a text article and you have an illustration that accompanies it, it's considered a spot illustration.
Well, I want to thank you, Joe, for coming on to the show. Enjoy the rest of the convention.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.
Want to learn more about horror directors? With a lighthearted look at 3 of their movies? Meet fearless podcaster Gore Blimey.
I've been unsettled by bats in the past and startled by parrots, and I've even been known to jump at the odd cockatoo.
Discover horror films that are classics, and others, too.
There's a topless aerobics massacre, an exploding rock singer, cannibals, nude martial arts, a deep-fried prostitute.
But it's not all silliness. You'll get proper movie breakdowns, opinion, and background information, too.
Yep, in the 80s and 90s, Jeff Stryker was huge in gay porn. In every sense.
So if you're a horror film fan, come and check out the Trilogy of Terror podcast at strangeanddeadly.com, or find it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or on your podcatcher.
One of those people that has a certain charisma and a certain style, and I'm just hoping one day he'll rub off on me.
The Trilogy of Terror podcast, where we try 3 times harder to give you the willies.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my ScareCon New England coverage here on Anthony T's Horror Show. I will try better next time to get a celebrity or 2 on when I do a convention show like ScareCon New England. But I'll try to make it up to you in somehow and get some name on my show. Hopefully sometime this summer or early fall. But now let's turn our attention to the Indie Roundup. I'm happy to bring that back onto the show, as this will be the 2nd edition of the Indie Roundup. For those who don't know what the Indie Roundup is, or who are new to the show, this is a segment where I review 2 indie films, 1 short film and 1 feature-length film that are currently on the film festival circuit. And this edition of the Indie Roundup, I will be reviewing the films Demonbond and Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central. Let's first start off with the short film Demonbond. Now, according to the Capture One Studios official website, Demonbond is about three friends are tricked by a fortune teller and end up with a demon after them. With no one to help, it's just the bond of friendship to keep the demon at bay. I had a really good time watching Demonbond. One of the reasons I enjoyed this film was the fact that this film has very good effects for the limited budget that this film has. I liked how it had a Hollywood-like feel to it, which really, I think, made the effects of this film very good. The film also has some very good direction from director Michael Del Santos, as he does a very good job making sure that this film has good action and good acting. It really made this film very enjoyable to watch. I thought the cast did a good job with the way that they portrayed the characters in the film, as I was into the characters and the performances. The film also features a very good performance from Amber Burns, as she does a very good job making sure her character Rhea is very sinister, very dark, which is good because I like sometimes to see witches be very dark and very gothic, and I really think she really portrayed the character very well and really helped this film have its very dark tone. Sometimes you need a performance like that to help with establishing the film's tone, as I really thought that was one of my favorite things about this film. Your villain also is kind of very dark and mysterious, and I think Amber Burns did a very good job in making that character that way, which in return made the character that she was playing a very effective villain. And with a film like this, the villain has to be very dark and creepy, and I really thought Amber Burns pulled it off very well. The screenplay, written by Matt Ehrman and Virginia Shine, does a very good job with moving the action along. It was one of those films where the 30 minutes went by pretty quick, which is sometimes a good thing, like in this case, because I was invested in the story and invested in the characters of the film. When that happens, then you're having a good time watching a short like this. I thought Demonbond was a very good film. It's worth checking out if it's playing at a local film festival, as it's going to be playing at some upcoming film festivals such as the Hollywood South Film Festival as part of the Friday night late night horror block on July 5th at 10:30 p.m. in Springfield, Kentucky. Reels of the Dead, which is basically Days of the Dead's film festival, and the Days of the Dead convention that takes place July 5th through the 7th in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the film also got recently accepted to the Indie Visions International Film Festival. I have no dates on when it's going to screen there. If you can't make it to any of those screenings, Demonbond is also available on Amazon as a rental for $2.99, or you can buy the short film for the low price of $4.99. I always just buy the film and support studios like Capture One Studios. I'm giving Demonbond 4 stars. The other film in this edition of the Indie Roundup is a film called Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central. Now, this film is a collection of short films wrapped into one film. Now, the plot for this film, according to the film's official Facebook page, it's Halloween at WKIZ when the malicious Mistress of Night arrives to host her annual horror movie marathon. Dead by Midnight when the WKIZ staff begins disappearing, only to turn up in the increasingly darker films. Now, if you might not notice, this film is a horror anthology film. And I have to say, this is really a very good horror anthology film. It has the perfect balance of how a horror anthology should work. You have your little fun short films. You have your little fun, serious films. Each short film was very good. I was very into each of them. There were really some good short films here. It also has an excellent wraparound segment too. But one of the main things that really makes this horror anthology work so well is that each of the short films felt different. It never got repetitive, which is always a good thing when watching a horror anthology film, because you see horror anthology films, sometimes they'll be all in the same tone, or it wouldn't have a certain charm to it that makes you interested in these films. Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central is a very good anthology film. In fact, I'll go on record and say this. I really think this is one of the best indie anthology horror films I've seen in quite a while. And it's a film that I really screamed, I want to buy this movie on deep Blu-ray. Because it was so good. Now, what are some of my favorite films from this horror anthology? I will start with the first one, Jersey Devil. This was a kind of cheesy, fun film. This short film had very good direction by Tony Reams. The acting, I thought, in that short film was very good. I thought everyone had great chemistry with each other. And I thought the action in that short film really set the tone for this film as the action was moving. In fact, all the short films, one of the things I cannot say enough was that each of the short films had a story where the action was just moving. And when you have a horror anthology where you have films that do that on a consecutive basis, you know you're really having a good time watching a film. I had a very great time watching Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central, as every film was good. If there's another film that I would also separate as the best of Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central, I'd have to say probably Day 3, as it really started to kick the film into high gear in tone-wise, as that film was as creepy and very dark. This was one of those films where it really was horrifying to watch. I had a really good time watching this film. The film's directed by Anissa Matlock. She does a very good job with the way that she directed that film and her performance in the film as well, as I thought that was one of the standout performances in Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central. And of course the film has a very good wraparound segment called Dead Air, with the wraparounds taking place in the TV studio. I thought this was a very good job by director Tori Haas. My apologies if I mispronounced the name wrong. I think did a very great job with his wraparound segment and the last short film in the horror anthology, Blindside. And of course, another thing that I liked about the wraparound segment was the performances from Hannah Fireman and Aaron Brown. If you don't know these two actresses, Hannah Fireman was in the VHS segment Amateur Night, where she played the demon in that segment. And Aaron Brown has been around, as she's done films such as The Rage with Andrew Didikoff and Reggie Bannister, and she's also done some films under the moniker Misty Monday, such as Bite Me, Screaming Dead, and Shockorama, all directed by Brett Piper. So those two actresses really were good in this film. It's also nice to see them working because they're both good actresses and can do good things as well in the horror genre. So it was a real treat to at least see both of them in this film, as I think it's pretty much their best film that each of them have been on in quite a while. I would definitely recommend you see Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central. It is a very good horror anthology film, and I have to say it's probably one of the best indie horror anthologies that I've seen in quite some time. I really hope this gets a DVD or Blu-ray release in the future, because this film deserves to be seen and to be checked out by indie horror fans and fans of horror anthologies alike. With that, it wraps up another edition of the Indie Roundup. If I had to choose which film I'd recommend, most definitely it would be Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central. It's just a better film, and I'd probably even go to say it's probably the best of the 4 films that have been showcased so far here on the Indie Roundup. You can find Anthony T's Horror Show on social media on these platforms. Facebook at facebook.com/Anthony T's Horror Show. Twitter at www.twitter.com/Anthony T's Horror. On Instagram at www.instagram.com/Anthony T's Horror Show. On YouTube at www.youtube.com/Anthony Thurber. And you can find Anthony T's Horror Show on the web as well at anthonytshorrorshow.blogspot.com. And you can also find Doc Discussions at www.docdiscussions.com. Staying with the ScareCon theme this episode, and the fact that I met Jeremy Holm, I definitely want to recommend his film The Ranger, because I really had a fun time watching this film. Now, this is a film that I found on Shudder, and once I saw this film, I couldn't believe how great this film was. It's literally one of the best films I've seen all year. And one of the main reasons why this is one of the best films I've seen all year is because of the fact that this film has a really good screenplay and really good direction. Let me first start with the direction of this film. I think Jen Wexler's direction is very good here. I like how she does a really good job making sure all the scenes had an intense feel to it, as the action in this film just keeps on moving from the first minute to the end. I thought she did a great job making sure that everything gelled well, whether it was her screenplay that she co-written to her making sure the action scenes had some sort of intense feel that keeps you interested in the film. Everything is done in a very good way that I really enjoyed it a lot. I liked how this film has a kind of punk rock vibe going for it, something like in the veins of Return of the Living Dead. It really gives this film its identity, which, let's face it, most horror films don't have an identity, even though they are good films. But the ones that are really good have some sort of identity, and this film really has this identity through its punk rock feel to it, whether it's the way the characters look, to the music that is used in the film, to how everything had this punk rock vibe to it. It's done very well that it has an identity that you can identify with. The other thing that really, I think, makes this film very good was the way that Jen Wexler does a good job with the way she directs her cast in the film. It felt like the cast had a very good chemistry with each other, which is very important for something like this to succeed, as there are some scenes where it's just great, especially the ones with Chloe Levine and Jeremy Holm. Those scenes are really, I think, some of the best scenes in the film, them working together. And speaking of those two, I think they were both great in this film. I think Jeremy Holm does a very good job portraying the film's villain, the Ranger. He really gives this character a very dark feel to it, whether it's the way he delivers his lines in the film, to how some of the words are written. Everything really gels very well to the point that Jeremy is able to pull off this character very well. I met him at ScareCon New England. Very nice guy. In times felt like the same guy who was in The Ranger at times, but in a more fun way, though. And I would not be remiss to also say that the other film's lead, Chloe Levine, does a very good job with her performance in the film. I like how she makes her character very kind of dark, conflicted throughout the whole film. It really added to the film, which really made this film really great to watch from both a storytelling point and an acting point. So I really highly recommend this, because The Ranger is truly one of the best films I've seen all year. I highly recommend you check this film out. Find a way to, whether it's on Shudder, whether you rent it on VOD or DVD, or buy the Blu-ray on Amazon, you have to see The Ranger. It's really a great horror film and truly one of the best horror films of the year so far. With that, The Ranger is my film recommendation this week. And remember, take nothing but pictures. Now, recently I put up a couple videos up on YouTube over at Anthony T's Horror Show on YouTube, which you can find at youtube.com/Anthony Thurber, Thurber. The first new video that I put up was another edition of Anthony T's Uncensored. In this edition, I talk about Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and why that film was not good at all. You can go to the YouTube to find that out, but I can tell you, I was not thrilled with this film. You'll get my full thoughts over on the YouTube channel. And also, I recently put out the first episode of Viva La Trauma, in which I review Don Dohler's Night Beast, which recently got re-released by Vinegar Syndrome. Definitely check that out as well. With that, I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a good day and support indie horror.